Howdy howdy my fellow gamers, welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Freak. Today we are diving into chapter 14 of Neal Shusterman's Thunderhead. We still got a long ways to go. There is no great mystery as to why I chose to set up chatter regions with laws and customs different from the rest of the world. I simply understood the need for variety and social innovation. So much of the world has become homogeneous. Such is the fate of a unified planet. Native languages became quaint and secondary. Races blend into a pleasing melange of all the best from each ethnicity with only minor variations. But in charter regions, differences are encouraged and social experiments abound. I have established 7 of these regions, 1 on each continent. Where possible, I have maintained the borders that define the region during the Age of Mortality. I am particularly proud of the social experiments featured in each of these charter regions. For instance, in Nepal, employment is forbidden. All citizens are free to engage in any recreational activity they choose and receive a basic income guarantee much higher than in other regions, so that they do not feel slighted by an inability to actually earn a living. This has resulted in a substantial rise in altruistic and charitable endeavors. One's social status is not measured by wealth, but by one's compassion and selfishness. In the charter region of Tasmania, each citizen is required to select a biological modification to augment their lifestyle. The most popular being gill-form breathers that allow for amphibious life and lateral webbing, like that one of a flying squirrel, which facilitates gliding as a sport and as self-propelled travel. Of course, no one is compelled to participate. People are free to leave or join in a charter region as they please. In fact, the growth or decline of a charter region's population is a good indication of how successful the region's unique laws are. In this way, I can continue to improve the human condition by broadly applying the most successful social programs to the rest of the world. And then there's Texas. This is the region in which I dabble in benevolent anarchy. There are few laws, few consequences. I do not govern here as much as I stay out of people's way and watch what happens. The results have been mixed. I've seen a few people rise to be the finest version of themselves, and others become victims of their own deepest flaws. I have yet to decide what is to be learned from this region. Further study is necessary. The Thunderhead. Chapter 14, TYGER and the Emerald Scythe. You'll have to do better than that, party boy. The wild-eyed, wild-mannered Scythe in the bright green kicked Tiger Salazar's legs out from under him, and he hit the mat hard. Why did they call him the flimsy thing of mat when it was every bit as bruising as the teakwood floor on the penthouse sundeck on which they sparred? Not that he minded. Even with his pain nanites dialed way down, he'd come to enjoy the endorphin rush that came with the pain of training. It was even better than splatting. Sure, jumping off high buildings could be addictive after a while, but so was hand-to-hand combat. And unlike splatting, fighting was different every time. The only variation he found in splatting was when he hit something on the way down. He was quickly on his feet and sparring again, getting in good enough blows to frustrate Scythe Rand. He got her off balance, took her down, and laughed, which only made her angrier. This was his intent. Her temper was her weakness. Even though she was far better than him in the brutal martial art of the Black Widow Bokatar, her temper made her sloppy and easy to outsmart. For a moment, he thought she might run at him and start brawling. When her temper took over, she pulled her hair, gouged her eyes, and ripped out every bit of exposed flesh with nails that could store stone. But not today. Today, she kept her wildness in check. Enough, she said, backing out of the circle. Hit the shower. You gonna join me? Tiger teased. She smirked. One of these days, I'll take you up on your offer, and you won't know what to do. You forget I'm a professional partier. I know a thing or two. Then he took off his sweat-drenched shirt, letting his sculpted torso serve as a visual parting shot, and sauntered off. As he took his private shower, Tiger marveled at his enviable situation. He had fallen into something pretty sweet. When he arrived, he thought it was just going to be a normal gig. But there was no party, no guests besides him. It had been more than a month since his arrival, and the gig showed no signs of ending anytime soon. Although he assumed if it was truly an apprenticeship, it would have to come to an end eventually. But in the meantime, he had the run of a lavish penthouse and all the food he could eat. His only requirement was exercise and training. Gotta buff out your body for the days ahead, party boy. She had never called him by his name. It was always party boy when she was in a good mood, and maggot or meat bog when she wasn't. Although she never confessed her age, he guessed it at 25, and a true 25. There was something about an older person who reset back to their 20s that made them easy to spot. There was a staleness to their youth, but the Emerald Scythe was going through life for the first time. Truth be told, he wasn't entirely convinced that the woman even was a Scythe. She did have a Scythe's ring, and it appeared to be real, but he never saw her go out gleaning, and he knew enough about Scythes to know that they had a quota to fill. What's more, she never met with other Scythes. Wasn't there some sort of meeting that they were obliged to attend several times a year? Conclave, it was called. Well, perhaps this isolation was a Texas thing. Rules and traditions were different here than in the rest of the Americas. They didn't call it the Lone Star region for nothing. Regardless, he wasn't about to look this gift horse in the mouth. In a family where he had always been an afterthought at best, he had no problem being the center of someone's attention. And he was strong now, agile, a specimen to be envied and admired. So even if it was all for naught and the Emerald Scythe turned him loose without so much as a goodbye and thank you, he could return to the party circuit without missing a beat. And with a build like he had now, he'd be in high demand. His ripped physique would make him a high-end eye candy for everyone for sure. And if he wasn't let go, then what? Would he be given a ring and sent out to glean? Could he bring himself to do it? Sure, he had pulled a share of pseudo-lethal practical jokes. Hadn't everyone? He still smiled to think of his all-time best one. The diving pool at his high school had been drained for maintenance, and Tiger had the bright idea of filling it with a holographic water. The school's best diver went up to the 10-meter platform and proceeded to do a perfect swan dive that ended in an unintentional splat. The moan he let out before he went deadish was classic. It was almost worth the 3-day suspension and the 6 weekends of public service levied on him by the Thunderhead. Even the diver, after getting back from the recovery center a few days later, admitted it was a pretty good joke. But deadish and dead were two entirely different things. Did he have it in him to end life permanently and do it every day? Well, maybe he would be like that Scythe whom Rowan had apprenticed under, Scythe Goddard, who knew how to throw great parties. If that was his part of the job description, Tiger could handle the rest of it, he supposed. Of course, Tiger wasn't entirely convinced that this was an apprenticeship for Scythehood. After all, Rowan had failed his apprenticeship. Tiger found it hard to believe that he could succeed where Rowan had not. Plus, Rowan had been changed by his experience. He had turned all dark and serious by the mental challenges he had been forced to face. There were no such mental challenges for Tiger. His brain had pretty much left out of it, and that was fine by him. It had never been his best organ. Perhaps he was being trained to be a Scythe's bodyguard, although he couldn't imagine why a Scythe would need one. No one was stupid enough to attack a Scythe when the punishment was the gleaning of one's entire family. If that turned out to be the case, he wasn't sure he would accept the job. All the severity with none of the power, the perks would have to be primo for him to agree to do it. I think you're almost ready, the Emerald Scythe told him over dinner that night. Her bot had just served him a lean slab of steak, and real steak, not the synthesized stuff. Natural protein was, after all, the best for building muscle. Ready for my ring, you mean, he asked? Or do you have something else in mind? She offered him an enigmatic smile that he found more attractive than he wanted to admit. He hadn't found her so when he first arrived, but there was something about the vicious yet intimate nature of the Bokatar sparring that changed their relationship. If it's a Scythe's ring, aren't there trials I have to face for a conclave? He asked. Trust me, party boy. You'll have that ring on your finger without ever having to go to conclave. You have my personal guarantee. So he was going to be a Scythe. Tiger ate the rest of his meal with gusto. It was both heady and chilling to finally know the nature of his destiny. And that is the end of Part 2, guys. Next episode, we will start Part 3, Enemies Within Enemies. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to check out the Twitch. We are doing our first ever charity stream on Monday, March 4th. That goes to Best Friends. It's an organization trying to find homes for abandoned pets and end no-kill shelters. It's a very, very good organization that I'm very excited to be raising money for. Monday, March 4th, Twitch, Freak OTRT. Link in the description. Much love. Stay freaky.